I'm Leonardo. I'm from Spain. I think all you know Spain for bullfighting and Andalusia and Barcelona and Barça and that things. I'm a security researcher since a lot of time, as I said. I'm too old. Pen tester, incident investigator, security researcher in my job and also in my free time. It's my hobby. I'm always at the offensive side. I mean, I'm always attacking, I'm always breaking things. Why? Because I think it's better to investigate actual attacks, to know future attacks, to have better protections to our customers, if I'm speaking for my company. Also, I'm a low-level guy. I like the things at low-level, protocol level, preferably. I always talking about networking things. I have presented also in Black Hat another conference about attacks at protocol levels. This talk is about how to exploit or post-exploit chains in DNS servers. Why? Some time ago, I started to investigate, to attack to one of our customers. It was a telecom company, and they had a lot of their routers hacked with a DNS change. Since that moment was a very big attack, since that moment it started to appear news about this kind of attacks. The attack I started to investigate is one of these attacks that other company published. We didn't. We stand it confidential with our customer. And I started to see there are many of these attacks involving always in phishing. Phishers understand that the routers, the home routers, are a very easy objective to hack. So the DNS was started to was the primary objective. Also, there are other ways to change DNS servers. For example, the last one, only for 20 minutes, was the hijack of the DNS server of Google in South America. It was only 20 minutes, but in 20 minutes, if you control this DNS, that everybody knows the IP address and it's very easy to configure it in a computer, I think you can catch a lot of information. Why these attacks are possible? It's because there are a lot of vulnerabilities that are founded recently in these routers, Stack Overflows. This is from February of 2014, this year, 1 month ago. Also CSRF. I think all the routers I have audited have CSRF. No, not all. Only a live box of Orange in Europe was the unique router without this vulnerability. Other vulnerabilities can be TFTP. They put that as a backdoor. No, it's not a backdoor. It was very common in the past, and nowadays still there is some manufacturers that still use this protocol. And also, TTS S0 found a backdoor in a D-Link computer. There are also vulnerabilities in content that don't do enough check of the authentication, and you can get the password. There are a lot of vulnerabilities. But the main vulnerability in all routers in 90% of the houses, we are talking not about companies, we are talking about people in his house, is bad passwords. Bad passwords, default passwords. 90% of the people don't change the password of his router, probably because they don't know. Okay, the normal exploitation. How these phishers exploit these vulnerabilities using, as I said, cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, cross-site request forgery, the insufficient authorization to grab password, to access to admin URLs at the router, using default communities with SNMP, using also TFTP, default password, and some routers come with the external administration activated. I don't understand why, but okay. Someone decides, I want this router can be administrated from internet. The user will be always inside, but let's open. Also, another way to hack these routers is cracking the Wi-Fi and also connect to the internal administration panel and using the default passwords, as I said. Other ways to change the DNS in a computer is directly using command line, because someone don't block his computer, or not command line, with your mouse, system properties, network properties, configuration of TCP/IP, DNS. From the default DHCP, no, I won't put my own DNS to attack it. Also, another way to attack these routers, especially DSL routers, is with a root DSLAM. This attack is not very practicable, but in a laboratory we bought in eBay a DSLAM, a little one. We could get the phone line of a normal user, connect it to the DSLAM, and with the DSLAM, we are a root provider. Normally, providers have an administration panel restricted for some IP's address. Okay, with our network, we can spoof that is IP address, and we can connect to the router and administrate it. It's not very practicable, but in the laboratory it works very well. And also, there are some malware that change the DNS server of the computers. And how it works. This is the normal attack that we used to see over internet. The client do a DHCP request to the router. The router responds to the DHCP with the internal IP and with a fake DNS server IP address. So now the client have configured the attacker IP DNS server, and he wants to connect to any domain, www.domain.com. Okay, www.domain.com, and the computer, the operating system, see, is this domain cached? No. Okay, let's ask to the DNS server, the attacker DNS server. The DNS server, look, domain.com. It's in my evil list, normally a bank. No, okay, I forward the DNS server to a real DNS server and send a response to the client. The client then connect to that IP address, no problem. But if that domain.com is in the evil list of the attacker, he sent a spoofed, a fake IP address to the client, and the client connect to that IP address. A very simple attack. The tools they use Metasploit. Metasploit have a DNS server to spoof the DNS request. DNS mask, another tool to do these things, or directly a bind server. The attacker configured a bind server. Sometimes we found that the bind server that the attacker used is hacked. So then, when the attacker has the DNS server and can redirect the traffic of the client, he can use attack tools. Burp Suite to proxy HTTP, or man-in-the-middle proxy, SSL strip. He can do HTML injection using beef to get information about the browser, split kits, to try to get inside the computer. This is for HTTP, for other protocols that are not HTTP. He can bounce this communication using SSL split for IMAP-S, or SMTP-S, or POP3S, any SSL protocol. Some actors, not the good ones, well, the good, not the real hackers, do the phishing, like the Syrian Electronic Army. That's not cool. The phishing a web is not good. Phishing is not good, but they are better attackers. And the main objective is sniffing the data. All the information sends. When I explained this to our customer, I said, okay, they are doing this, but they are doing bad. This attack, they have a lot of obstacles. It's very easy to detect them. That's the reason of my posterior research, to avoid these obstacles. First obstacle, SSL certificates. If the objective, the victim, tries to connect directly to a HTTPS server or any SSL server, the program will launch an alert that is very specific, the alert. The message is in Spanish. I'm sorry. But, okay, few years later, it was very easy to say, yes, I accept. But nowadays, it's not so easy. For the attacker, it's very critical, this message, because he can be easily detected. Other obstacle is SSL certificate pinning, an image that implements more or less the same thing. The pinning certificate is, unless you have a valid certificate, because you have a valid root certification authority, some browsers, Google Chrome and Firefox, I don't know if another one have it, knows exactly what certificate the server must send, the Google servers specifically. So even you have a valid certificate, it's very difficult to hijack, to sniff the data, for example, for Gmail. This, as I said before, this is very critical for the attacker because it's very easy to detect them. Another obstacle is HSTS, HTTP Strict Transport Security. It's a new header in HTTP that implements Google and Firefox. I think that Internet Explorer 11 also, but I'm not sure, to avoid SSL strip attacks. This header tells to the browser that to this site you always must connect using SSL. Always. Don't matter what the HTML said to you. It's the web page says connect to HTTP gmail.google.com. Don't bother. You must to connect using HTTPS. Some browsers have implemented inside some sites by default to connect by HTTPS, preloaded HSTS sites. For example, mailgoogle.com or Facebook. This obstacle is not critical because an attacker can be trying to do an SSL strip attack, but the victim will not see anything weird because his browser will connect with, using HTTPS. Doesn't matter what the attacker do. So this is a not critical obstacle. Another obstacle is, for example, SSH signatures. If you are redirecting a host to your machine and you provide that service and the victim is trying to connect to SSH, I think the warning is very clear, critical for the attacker, because the victim will think, oh, something is attacking me. Other obstacles are, for example, service banners. POP3 and SMTP, the banner of the service. If you are redirecting the traffic to your own service, the banner will be not the same. But this is not a critical problem, but who see the banners? Because you have your email client, and my email client don't show me the banner. The FTP banner can be critical. Some people, specifically me, use the command line FTP client. So I can see the banner is what I'm connecting to a Microsoft service because this is a link. This can be critical. I don't know. And the result of all of that is, if the attacker don't want to be detected, he must to be limited to some hosts, and he will be limited to some protocols to not alert to the victim. As I said, limitations: limited hosts, or also time to study the IP communication manners of the victim. The attacker can say, okay, I will not redirect the traffic to my own server until I study what servers the victim used to connect and to find a good way to bouncer to these servers. Also, you are limited, the attacker is limited to clear text protocols. If, as I said, he don't want to be intercepted. Limited by HTTPS. I put this in another point because later I will talk about that. It's a cipher protocol. And the attacker must accept to lose a lot of information. Okay. How I thought to improve the attack procedure to get discretion. I don't want the victim to detect the attack, and to improve data acquisition from time zero. I want more data. And for that, I will use a DNS feature for high availability and load balancing. That is multiple responses. For example, if you do a lookup of Google, you receive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 answers. So if on the operating system, if try to connect to a service in www.google.com, we'll try first the first IP address. If he can't connect, he will try the second IP address. If he can connect, the third, etc. You can see that telnet, I did it a minute before the DNS lookup, and the IP address are different. So using this feature, how I made the attack. Okay. The victim asked to the router DHCP request. The router was hacked, and the DNS server was changed. And so the router sent a DHCP response with the fake DNS server. The victim was to connect to any site and send a DNS request to the attacker server. The attacker server sends forward the request to a real DNS. The real DNS sends a response to the attacker server, and then the attacker server sends a DNS response to the victim, but it's at the top of the list of the IP address two IP addresses. Two IP addresses that are controlled by the attacker. The IP address to server number 1 and the IP address to server number 2, and the rest of the response of the real server. And also, he sent that response with a short TTL because he don't want that the victim have in his memory this resolution. We will say why. Then the victim tried to connect to any service, any TCP port. I'm talking in TCP, to the attacker server. And the attacker server sent a reset packet of that SYN request. What the victim will do? The victim will connect to the next server. But now the attacker knows where the victim wants to connect and what port wants to connect to, and configure the second IP address to forward the connection to the real server that the victim wants initially. So the victim sends a SYN packet again to the second IP address that is also controlled by the attacker. The attacker forward the SYN packet to the real server answer, and the attacker forward the answer back to the victim. And the connection is established through the server of the attacker. Now the attacker can do what he wants with the connection. Only sniffing. He can modify that data. And what happened? For example, if the victim initially wants to connect to HTTP with to ports 80, the attacker can have an invisible proxy, burst suite, for example. The attacker can reject SSL ports at the both IP address because the victim will connect later to the original server, to the real server. So the victim will not see any SSL warning. And other connections can be forwarded through the every service since the first moment without transparently for the victim without any problem. And for that, there is a tool to do that. We call it DNS2 proxy. It's a proof of concept tool. It's full in Python, based in DNS Python. It permits spoof the DNS response, direct forwarding the DNS request and response, and add the IPs to that response. This tool also configures with IP tables the server to forward the connection that the victim wants to do. For example, if I launch the tool with two IP addresses, then if you do a lookup of www.google.com against my DNS server, I have also hijacked the DNS of Google, you can see that you receive the IP address of Google. I can see, yes. Plus, at the start, there are both IPs that I said I configured here. Okay, so if a computer wants to connect to www.google.com, first it will connect to this IP address, and secondly, if it can, we'll connect to the second one. If it can't, we'll connect to the third one, that is Google. Okay, I will show you the demo. Sorry? Oh. Oh, this is only to later to see what's happening. You can see it well, more or less. Okay, I will launch the tool, okay, telling what is the IP address of the attacker, number one, and what is the IP address of the attacker, number two. And now, no. As I said, if I do a lookup, for example, blackhat.com against Google, we receive two IP address, but if I do with my DNS server, we have the true IP address plus the IP address I have configured. Now, to attack this. Hey. Okay. We will also suppose that this Windows is in a network, and someone has changed the DNS server or the DNS server at the router and put the DNS server of the attacker. Okay. And here I will open, I forgot. burp suite. Oh. I put the proxy, no intercept, and I put the proxy at port, I don't know if you can see it, at port 80, also in invisible mode. And I think everything is okay, yes. So, okay, at first is the Windows machine. It's here. Want to browse any web. For example, this one. He will ask to the DNS server, wait, too much requests. He's sending a lot of crap. Okay. Here. If when the browser starts, I have S21sec main web as the start. So the DNS service sends the response with the 2 IP address, and when it connects, it directly connects through the boot suite. We should see it. And here, the connection, etc., etc. If you want to connect to HTTPS, we will see here, that's with this kind of, you see something now? Yes. That's with HTTPS, we don't have any alert. Why? Because we don't have HTTPS server, so the browser connects directly to the real server. Okay, we can't sniff the information, or we can sniff it, but it's different. But the client will not, the victim will not see anywhere. What's the matter if we try to connect to a FTP server? I will put it. For example, to FTP server. Okay. If you want to connect to FTP server, it's not, we don't have an invisible proxy to connect to FTP. So the DNS server detects that the victim wants to connect to this address, but he still don't know what port he wants. And he launched a sniffer at the first IP address, and he detects that, perfect, that the client sends a SYNC packet to the first IP address on port 21. Okay, then the tool launch an IP tables script to forward at the second IP address the connection to the real server, to this IP address. Then sends to the victim a reset packet, and the victim will connect to the second IP address that is forwarded using IP tables to the real server. But the connection to the FTP will be through the attacker server. If here we put an user, let's just have FTP and password. Yes. Oops. Obviously, demo effect. Here, I don't know what it fails. The user can sniff the FTP password, the user, sorry, and the password here. And why the LS don't work? Probably because we are in a net of a net, and the router here don't have the FTP module to forward FTP. Let's see. Is this a normal FTP? Oh, here it works. Okay, I don't know why it doesn't work, but it must. Okay, unless we have the password sniffed. When the IP table is launched at the script, at the oh, yes. I know why it fails. Because I have to launch it using as a script that I didn't use. Let me say. Now it must work. Let's give some time to catch. Okay, left. Password. Oh, now it works. No. Oh, okay. I don't know what it fails. Supposedly, the script launch, especially for FTP, the FTP module to let the victim connect through us to a FTP server, but not now. For the second demo, I think I will use the the video. Okay, but this is the technique. First, the victim will try to connect to one server. The server knows where to forward, connect to the second server, and the second server will forward. Okay. With that, supposedly we don't have a limited host interception because we can provide every service except FTP. We don't have to spend time to study the IP communications of the objective. We still have the limitation of the clear text protocol interception, also the HTTPS. We don't accept to lose a lot of information because that's time we spend to study that communication to maintain us invisible. Now I will try to use to catch HTTPS to use SSL strip. As I said, the new protection against SSL strip is, I will put in the presentation. The new protection is STS. I will comment how it's the common SSL strip usage since Moxie Marley Spike presented. I don't know if you can see it. First is using IP tables, redirect the traffic of 80 port to the 666 port or any other port. Then do a ARP spoofing or redirecting the traffic of the victim to our server with ARP spoof in this example. Then launch SSL strip in the ports we want. We configured it before, in this example 666. And then the victim, when try to connect to HTTP, will connect through the SSL strip proxy, and the SSL strip proxy will forward the connection to the HTTP, to the real HTTPS server, but will maintain in HTTP to the victim, and in a log file you can see the user and the password, etc. As I said, strict trapper security will make for some interesting sites mandatory to connect via HTTPS. So SSL strip must be not successful. So for that, I developed SSL strip plus. Basing that strict trapper security policy is based in domain names, predefined in the browser or not, or using the HTTP header. So DSSL strip plus changed as SSL strip HTTPS to HTTP, but also changed the domain names. As we control the DNS server, we can resolve this these domain names changed before to the real one. So HSTS is based on the domain names. We change it, so HSTS is spawned. Oh, I will try a second demo. Okay, we have launched this. I will relaunch it. Okay. Is everything okay? Yes. And now I will launch SSL strip on port 80, sniffing everything in okay. As I said, Google Chrome has some sites predefined as mandatory to connect using HTTPS. For example, mail.google.com or account.google.com. But it don't have www.google.com as a predefined site to connect using HTTPS. So if you put www.google.com, it will connect using HTTP. Here, he sent me to Google Singapore. Okay, everything is okay. And I want to start a session. Okay. I don't know if you can see them. Okay, I will press. I want to start a session in Google. Here you have. But there is something strange. It's here, the URL. It must be account.google.com. But there is cuentas, is accounts in Spanish, cuentas.google.com. I changed the domain address. And there is no HTTPS because I changed the HTTPS at the HTML and also changed the domain server, and Chrome says, okay, to this site I can connect using HTTP in clear test. I can use any. For example, the account is not real. If I try to log in inside, password, ultra secure. He will set the address is not the login and password is not good, but supposing that we use a good password, at the log file, here, there are the HTML, password you want. Email, here. Okay, there is the post we do to account google.com. Okay, because the SSL strip changed the name and sends to the real server, and the password, the email address here. So we can still sniff using SSL strip connections, avoiding HSTS, strict tapper security. I have also a video, but there is no time. So, as I said, strict tapper security is owned, because if you can redirect traffic to send it to the SSL strip server, you also can redirect traffic to your own DNS server. Also, here I have some rules, wire rules, to change the domain names. For example, I hard code accounts google.com change to cuentas.google.com. But other server, I put 4 W to change the domain name. Not many people will see the 4 W's at the URL, so it will be very transparent. For example, for other servers, I put web prefix the domain name, so it's very transparent. For use this attack, you need that the victim first connect to any site in this demo to Google using HTTP. If the victim connect directly to HTTPS or connects to other server that use SSL, IMAP-S, but you must take advantage of other factors or vulnerabilities. For example, the Iranian people use his own certificate to intercept Google traffic. That's the reason that Google implement certificate pinning in his browser. Someone, we don't know who, still trust SSL certificates, root certificate. For a while, these guys could make real certificates. You can take advantage of other attacks like Beast or Crime, explained by Giuliano Rizzo, and all, of course. Recently, you can take advantage of go-to-fail bug, an iPhone, and the bug of SSL in OS X Maverick, recently patched. Other possibilities using this is do some downgrade attacks to other protocols, JavaScript infections. There was a talk about that in Black Hat 2 years ago. Or for decoding other protocols, as I said, ask to NSA. He can answer better than me. Other attacks that I'm thinking is attack, for example, the cipher of WhatsApp is not too difficult to do. I was talking about TCP, but what's the matter with UDP? UDP, the control of the communication is not by the operating system. It's, the communication is taken by the application. So if the application resend an UDP packet, we can use the same the same method to detect it. If not send the UDP packet, resend it, we can't intercept it in a good way. I only found, I was sniffing my company network and my own communications in my house. The only UDP packets I saw was, of course, DNS, SNMP in my company, and a video game that I used to play. So there's not a lot of services. Probably some VoIP services that can use UDP, but not a lot. My application still only control TCP, but it's only a proof of concept. But if anyone wants to use it, can see that the code is very easy and can extend it. Other scenarios that can be applied, this attack of how to control DNS, are when someone hack the DNS of a company or a country directly. So using this technique can redirect the traffic to that company or the users of that DNS. Conclusion. Improved DNS configuration now attacks with two tools. Now it's more easily to hijack these communications. All protocols means all security. New protocols plus all protocols is all security, something better, but still all security, that means insecurity. Solution for that, DNSSEC. That the DNS response must be signed. And this is all thanks to many people, especially for the man who first thought, oh, let's put a default password and then the user can change it. For sure, he will do. Okay, Simon, any question? Okay, thank you.